Ioannina, often called Ioannina within Greece, is the capital and largest city of Epirus, an administrative region in northwestern Greece, with a population of 112,486. It lies at an elevation of approximately 500 meters above sea level, on the western shore of Lake Pamvotis. It is located within the Ioannina municipality, and is the capital of Ioannina Regional Union and the region of Epirus. Ioannina is located 450 kilometers northwest of Athens, 290 kilometers southwest of Thessaloniki and 80 kilometers east of the port of Igoumenitsa in the Ionian Sea. Founded by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian in the 6th century AD, Ioannina flourished following the Fourth Crusade, when many wealthy Byzantine families fled there in the early 13th century following the sack of Constantinople. It was part of the Despotate of Epirus from 1358 to 1416, before surrendering to the Ottomans in 1430. Between 1430 and 1868, the city was the administrative center of the Pashalik of Ioannina. In the period between the 18th and 19th centuries, the city was a major center of the modern Greek Enlightenment. Ioannina joined Greece in 1913 following the Balkan Wars. The city has both a general and a university hospital, and is the seat of the University of Ioannina south of the city, with 17 departments and 20,000 students, as well as several departments of the Tau Ethnological Educational Institute of Epirus, the headquarters of which are located in Arta. The city's emblem consists of the portrait of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian crowned by a stylized depiction of the nearby ancient theatre of Dodona. Name: the city's formal name, Ioannina, means town of John in Greek. The establishment of a monastery of St. John the Baptist on the northeastern acropolis of the castle likely marks the origin of the town's name. There are two name forms in Greek, Ioannina being the formal and historical name, while the colloquial and more commonly used Janina or Janina represents the vernacular tradition of Demotic Greek. The Demotic form also corresponds to those in the neighboring languages. History. Antiquity and Middle Ages. The first indications of human existence in Ioannina Basin are dated back to the Paleolithic period as testified by findings in the cavern of Kastritsa. During classical antiquity the basin was inhabited by the Molossians and 4 of their settlements have been identified there. Despite the extensive destruction suffered in Molossia during the Roman conquest of 167 BC, settlement continued in the basin, albeit no longer in an urban pattern. The exact time of the town's foundation is unknown, but an unnamed new, well-fortified city, recorded by the historian Procopius as having been built by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I for the inhabitants of ancient Euroea, is sometimes identified with Ioannina. However, it is not until 879 AD that the name Ioannina was used for the first time in the Acts of the Fourth Council of Constantinople in 879, which refer to one Zacharias, bishop of Ioannina. During the time of Tsar Samuil of Bulgaria, the town was part of the Bulgarian Empire. The name Ioannina was also mentioned as an episcopal see, under the self-governing Bulgarian Archbishopric of Ohrid in 1020 in an imperial document by Basil II. The city was conquered in 1082 by the Normans under the leadership of Bohemond of Taranto, who repaired the existing city walls in order to repel the offensive of Emperor Alexios I Komnenos. Alexios I nonetheless recovered the city in 1108. In the 13th century, the creation of the Despotate of Epirus favored Ioannina, which became its second most important city after its capital, Arta, and the capital of Atama of Ioannina. The founder of the Despotate, Michael I Komnenos Doukas, settled there refugee noble Byzantine families who fled Constantinople and other parts of the empire that fell to the Latins of the Fourth Crusade. Despite frictions with local inhabitants, who tried in 1232 to expel the refugees, The latter were eventually successfully settled, and Ioannina gained in both population and economic and political importance. The city was besieged unsuccessfully by an army from the restored Byzantine Empire, most likely in the summer or autumn of 1292. Following the assassination of the last Komnenos despot by his nephew in 1318, the citizens of Ioannina broke from the despotate and declared their allegiance to the Byzantine Empire. In the same year, Ioannina became tributary to the Byzantine Emperor Andronikos II Palaiologos. The city was elevated to a metropolitan bishopric, and in 1319 Andronikos II issued a chrysobull conceding wide-ranging autonomy and various privileges and exemptions on its inhabitants. In 1337–1340, Andronikos III Palaiologos, aided by John Kantakouzenos, dissolved the despotate of Epirus, and Ioannina became once again part of the Byzantine Empire. A few years later, however, it fell to the Serbs, who had by then expanded their state over much of Byzantine and Bulgarian territory to form the Serbian Empire. The city's privileges were also honored by the Serbs, and as a result Ioannina rose to economic and cultural prominence over the next century. The city flourished, becoming an important financial and cultural center. During the Byzantine times it was referred to as the metropolis of knowledge. The city was the capital of the restored despotate of Epirus from 1358 to 1416. In 1366–67, the Serb Thomas II Prelubović became the new overlord of Ioannina, under whose rule the city stood against Albanian attacks. After Prelubovic's death in 1384, the city surrendered to Isorda, Juan del Monte and Carlo I Tocco. Early Ottoman period. The death of Tocco in 1430 signaled the submission of Ioannina to the Ottoman Turks, who granted several privileges to the town in exchange for its surrender. These were known as the Rule of Sanar Pasha, from the name of Kara Sanar Pasha, who signed the treaty. Ioannina became a seat of the Ottoman Sanjak of Ioannina. In 1611 the city suffered a serious setback as a result of a peasant revolt led by Dionysius the philosopher, bishop of Larissa. The Greek inhabitants of the city were unaware of the intent of the fighting, as previous successes of Dionysios had depended on the element of surprise. Much confusion ensued as Turks and Christians ended up indiscriminately fighting friend and foe alike. The revolt ended in the abolition of all privileges granted to the Christian inhabitants, who were driven away from the castle area and had to settle around it. From then onwards, Turks and Jews were to be established in the castle area. The school of Despoton at the Church of Taxiarches, that had been operating since 1204, was closed. Aslan Pasha also destroyed the monastery of St. John the Baptist within the city walls, killed the monks, and in 1618 erected in its place a mosque. Aslan Kami, today a museum, center of Greek Enlightenment. Despite that blow, the city managed to recover. Its inhabitants continued their commercial and handicraft activities, which allowed them to trade with important European commercial centers, such as Venice and Livorno, where merchants from Ioannina established commercial and banking houses. The first three owned printing presses that were operating in Venice and published thousands of books for the Ottoman-ruled Greek people were established by members of the Ioanniote diaspora: Nikolaos Glikis, Nikolaos Saros and Dimitrios Theodosou. Ioannina was the center through which the books printed on these presses were channeled into Greece. These were significant historical, theological as well as scientific works, including an algebra book funded by the Zosimades family of Ioanniotan benefactors, books for use in the schools of Ioannina such as the Arithmetica of Balinos Vassilopoulos, as well as medical books. At the same time, these merchants and entrepreneurs maintained close economic and intellectual relations with their birthplace and founded charity and education establishments. These merchants were to be major national benefactors. In the 17th century, Ioannina was a thriving city with respect to population and commercial activity, as both French and Turkish travelers Jacques Spon and Evliya Çelebi, respectively, attest. Evliya Çelebi visited the city in 1670 and mentioned the presence of 1,900 shops and workshops and 4,000 houses. The great economic prosperity of the city was followed by remarkable cultural activity. During the 17th and 18th centuries, many important schools were established. The Epiphanio was founded in 1647 by a Greek merchant in Venice, Epiphanios Igoumenos. The school of Gouma or Dumius was founded in 1676 by a benefaction from another wealthy Ioanniote Greek from Venice, Emmanuel Goumas. It was renamed Balanios by its rector, Balanos Vassilopoulos, in 1725. Here worked several notable personalities of the Greek Enlightenment, such as Bessarion Makrish, the priests Georgios Sophoudiris and Anastasios Papavasiliou, the monk Methodios Anthrakites, his student Ioannis Villares and Cosmas Balanos. The Balanios taught philosophy, theology and mathematics. It suffered financially from the capture of Venice by the French and finally stopped operation in 1820. The school's library, which hosted several manuscripts and epigrams, was also burned the same year following the capture of Ioannina by the troops the Sultan had sent against Ali Pasha. Another school founded by a benefaction by merchants of the Maraoutsas family, who were also active Venice, the Maraoutsaya School, opened in 1742 and its first director Eugenios Vulgaris championed the study of the physical sciences as well as philosophy and Greek. The Maraoutsaya also suffered after the fall of Venice and closed in 1797 to be reopened as the Kaplanios thanks to a benefaction from an Ioanniote living in Russia, Zos Kaplanes. Its schoolmaster, Athanasios Salidis, had been a student of Methodios Anthrakites and had also studied in Vienna and in Russia. Salidis established an important library of thousands of volumes in several languages and laboratories for the study of experimental physics and chemistry that aroused the interest and suspicion of Ali Pasha. The Kaplanios was burned down along with most of the rest of the city after the entry of the Sultan's armies in 1820. These schools took over the long tradition of the Byzantine era, giving a significant boost to the Greek Enlightenment. Neophytos Doukas, a famous Epirot scholar, wrote, with a little exaggeration, "During the 18th century, every author of the Greek world was either from Ioannina or was a graduate of one of the city's schools." In 1789 the city became the center of the territory ruled by Ali Pasha, an area that included the entire northwestern part of Greece, southern parts of Albania, Thessaly as well as parts of Euboea and the Peloponnese. The Ottoman Albanian Lord Ali Pasha was one of the most influential personalities of the region in the 18th and 19th centuries. Born in Tepelin, he maintained diplomatic relations with the most important European leaders of the time, and his court became a point of attraction for many of those restless minds who would become major figures of the Greek Revolution. Although during this time Ali Pasha committed a number of atrocities against the Greek population of Ioannina, culminating in the sewing up of local women in sacks and drowning them in the nearby lake. This period of his rule coincides with the greatest economic and intellectual era of the city. As a couplet has it, the city was first in arms, money and letters. The efforts of Ali Pasha to break away from the Sublime Porte alarmed the Ottoman government, and in 1820 he was declared guilty of treason and Ioannina was besieged by Turkish troops. Ali Pasha was assassinated in 1822 in the monastery of St. Panteleimon on the island of the lake, where he took refuge while waiting to be pardoned by Sultan Mahmud II. Period 1830 to 1943. The Zosimiya was the first significant educational foundation established after the outbreak of the Greek War of Independence. It was financed by a benefaction from the Zosimas brothers and began operating in 1828 and fully probably from 1833. It was a school of liberal arts. The Zosimia was badly damaged in an air raid by Italian planes in 1940 and was rebuilt on a new, more spacious location with donations from Ioannina after 1955. The mansion of Angeliki Papaziglou became the Papaziglou School for Girls as an endowment following her death. It operated until 1905. Today it is a public school. In 1869, a great part of Ioannina was destroyed by fire. The marketplace was soon reconstructed according to the plans of the German architect Holtz, thanks to the personal interest of Ahmet Rashim Pasha, the local governor. Communities of people from Ioannina living abroad were active in financing the construction of most of the city's churches, schools and other elegant buildings of charitable establishments. The first bank of the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Bank, opened its first branch in Greece in Ioannina, which shows the power of the city in world trade in the 19th century. During the spring of 1877, Albanian leaders organized a congress in the city regarding decisions of the Constantinople Conference and sent a memorandum to the Ottoman government demanding, among other things, the establishment of Albanian language schools. In May 1877, various Muslim Albanians of the Vilayet formed in Ioannina a committee which aimed at defending Albanian rights, but it was inactive in general. On the other hand, the Greek population of the Ioannina region authorized a committee in order to present to European governments their wish for union with Greece. Demetrios Chasiatis, a notable member of this committee, published a memorandum in Paris in 1879. Ioannina was incorporated into the Greek state on 21 February 1913 after the Battle of Bazani in the First Balkan War. After the Asia Minor catastrophe and the subsequent population exchange, the Muslim element of the population left, and the city received Greek refugees from Asia Minor. A small Muslim community of Albanian origin continued to live in Ioannina after the exchange, which in 1940 counted 20 families and decreased to 8 individuals in 1973. Jewish community. According to the local Greek scholar Panayotis Aravantinos, a synagogue destroyed in the 18th century bore an inscription, which dated its foundation in the late 9th century AD. The existing synagogue is located in the old fortified part of the city known as Castro, at 16 Lustinianu Street. Its name means the Old Synagogue. It was constructed in 1829. Its architecture is typical of the Ottoman era, a large building made of stone. The interior of the synagogue is laid out in the Romaniyat way. The bimah is on a raised dais on the western wall, the Aaron HaKodesh is on the eastern wall, and at the middle there is a wide interior aisle. The names of the Ioannina Jews who were killed in the Holocaust are engraved in stone on the walls of the synagogue. There was a Romaniyat Jewish community living in Ioannina before World War II, in addition to a very small number of Sephardi. According to Ray Dalvin, 1,950 Jews were living in Ioannina in April 1941. Of these, 1,870 were deported by the Nazis to concentration camps on 25 March 1944, during the final months of German occupation. Almost all of the people deported were murdered on or shortly after the 11th of April 1944, when the train carrying them reached Auschwitz-Birkenau. Only 181 Ioannina Jews are known to have survived the war, including 112 who survived Auschwitz and 69 who fled to join the resistance leader Napoleon Zervas and the National Republican Greek League. Approximately 164 of these survivors eventually returned to Ioannina. Today the remaining community has shrunk to about 50 mostly elderly people. The Kehila Kedosha Yashin synagogue remains locked, only opened for visitors on request. Emigrant Romaniates return every summer and open the old synagogue. The last time a bar mitzvah was held in the synagogue was in 2000, and was an exceptional event for the community. A monument dedicated to the thousands of Greek Jews who perished during the Holocaust was constructed in the city in a 13th-century Jewish cemetery. In 2003, the memorial was vandalized by unknown anti-Semites. The Jewish cemetery too was repeatedly vandalized in 2009. As a response to the vandalisms, citizens of the city formed an initiative for the protection of the cemetery and organized rallies. Climate. Ioannina has a borderline humid subtropical and Mediterranean climate in the Köppen climate classification, since only 2 summer months have less than 40 mm of rainfall, preventing it from being classified as solely humid subtropical or Mediterranean, and is tempered by its inland location and elevation. Summers are typically hot and moderately dry, while winters are wet and colder than on the coast with frequent frosts and occasional snowfall. Ioannina is the wettest city in Greece. The absolute maximum temperature ever recorded was 42.4 degrees Celsius, while the absolute minimum ever recorded was -13 degrees Celsius.